Every sport entails competitiveness, there's no doubt about that. But sometimes the athletes can get a little too caught up in the game. In tennis, we've seen a lot of rivalries throughout the years, and some of them even spanned for years. For today's episode, we'll be listing down the most intense female tennis player rivalries through the years. So if you're curious to know more about this topic, then make sure you keep on watching. Starting today's list, we have Chris Evert versus Yvonne Goolagong's rivalry from 1972 to 1983. Before Martina Navratilova entered the scene in the first half of Evert's nearly two-decade-long career, Goolagong served as her main court foe. The Australian's name is frequently overlooked on all-time rankings, but her 7 Grand Slam victories from the 1950s through the 1970s show that she routinely defeated the greatest players in the world. With her triumph over Evert in the 1980 Wimbledon final, Goolagong also made history by becoming the first mother to do so since 1914. The two played very differently from one another, which is what made their matchup intriguing. Goolagong employed drop shots and net play to great effect, and she had a lot of variation, but Evert was consistently reliable from the back of the court. Goolagong excelled at her home slam, winning 4 Australian Open championships, while Evert outplayed her at the US Open, taking both of their New York finals in 1975 and 1976. Aside from Goolagong, Chris Evert also went on par with Martina Navratilova from 1973 to 1988. Many believe that the greatest rivalry in tennis history was between Navratilova and Evert. Between these two game legends, there isn't much to choose from. Navratilova's 10-4 record in their encounters in Grand Slam finals accounts for her 6 additional victories in their head-to-head matchup. No two players have dominated the sport for as long as these two have. It is probably reasonable to say 60 of their 80 encounters took place in championship games. They participated in an incredible 6 straight major finals between 1984 and 1985. With victories in 21 of the first 25 meetings between the two teams, Evert dominated the first half of their rivalry. However, Navratilova dominated the 1980s, winning 30 of their previous 39 meetings. Early on, Navratilova was losing to Evert, so she returned to the gym and concentrated on improving her physical condition. She turned the tables on the Americans after coming back stronger than ever, both physically and mentally. The 1985 French Open final, which Evert won in a nail-biting 3-set match to recapture the #1 ranking at the age of 30, is undoubtedly the most well-known contest between the two. Carrying on with the list, we have Martina Navratilova versus Steffi Graf's rivalry from 1984 to 1994. The age difference between these two is over 13 years, yet given how competitive their interactions were, it was difficult to discern. In the second half of the 1980s, Navratilova and Graf were at the top of their game. 6 Grand Slam finals between the two took place between 1987 and 1989, with Graf winning 4 of the contests. The German defeated Navratilova in an exciting 6-4, 4-6, 8-6 triumph to claim her maiden major title at the 1987 French Open. The seasoned player then defeated Graf in the Wimbledon and US Open finals of that year, but her younger adversary came back to defeat her in the Wimbledon Championships finals twice, and the US Open 1989 final once. The pinnacle of their rivalry continues to be the 3 back-to-back Wimbledon finals they faced off in between 1987 and 1989. Navratilova managed to put up one last masterclass versus Graf, just as it appeared the rivalry was over. At the 1989 US Open semifinal, the two faced off for the final time in a Grand Slam. After an exciting match, Navratilova prevailed 7-6, 6-7, 6-4. Next, we have Steffi Graf versus Arantxa Sanchez Vicario's rivalry from 1988 to 1996. Vicario may not be the most well-known player, but her rivalry with Graf was a major draw for tennis fans in the 1990s. Amazingly, 25 of the 36 times the two faced off were in the championship. Even more intriguing is the fact that their previous 16 meetings had a place in championship games. Graf enjoys a commanding advantage in their lifetime head-to-head clashes, and even has a 5-2 advantage in their encounters in the Grand Slam finals. The two competed in back-to-back French Open and Wimbledon championships in 1995 and 1996, with Graf winning both matches. Vicario did, however, achieve some noteworthy victories over the German. At At the 1989 French Open, the Spaniard overcame Graf as a 17-year-old to win her maiden major. Vicario made an incredible comeback to win the 1994 US Open by scores of 1-6, 7-6, and 6-4. Continuing with the list, we have Steffi Graf and Monica Seles rivalry that ran from 1989 to 1999. For tennis fans, the Graf-Seles rivalry will always be a bittersweet memory. Graf was the unquestioned court queen from 1987 until 1990. During that time, she held the #1 ranking in the world and won 9 Grand Slams. But at the start of the 1990s, a unique Yugoslavian talent came to light. A 16-year-old Seles overcame Graf in the French Open final in 1990 to win her first Grand Slam championship. It was a significant event since few people expected the powerful Graf to lose to a young person. However, Seles quickly showed that her success was not an isolated incident. The two faced off in 3 of the 4 major finals between 1992 and 1993, with Seles winning twice. The best match they played in was perhaps the 1992 French Open final, in which Seles won 6-2, 3-6, 10-8. However, Seles was stabbed in the back by a fan of Graf 3 months after she defeated Graf in the 1993 Australia Open final during a tournament in Hamburg. The tragedy of that incident continues to rank among the worst in sports history. Of course, today's list also includes the Williams sisters, Serena versus Venus Williams, whose rivalry ran from 1998 until now. The current style of women's tennis is largely due to Venus and Serena. They introduced a brand new kind of power hitting to the game. The Williams sisters stepped into the spotlight once the Graf period came to an end, with the dawn of the new millennium. They developed undoubtedly the greatest sibling rivalry in the history of the sport when they faced off in 8 Grand Slam finals in the 2000s. Venus prevailed in their first 3 matches, but Serena took over after that. Between 2001 and 2003, when they competed in 6 of 8 straight Grand Slam finals, they were at their most dominant. Next, we have Kim Clijsters versus Justine Henin's rivalry from 1998 to 2010, wherein both athletes dominated the sport. Between these two players, there isn't much to pick from. When one considers their competition in the past, each player has some distinct advantages. While Henin has a 5-3 advantage in their Grand Slam matches and has won all 3 of their 3 major finals, Clijsters has the stronger overall head-to-head record. But Clijsters outperformed the other by winning their final 3 matches. Had Clijsters not taken a 2-year vacation in 2007, when both players were at the height of their powers, and had Henin not announced her retirement from tennis at the age of 29 in 2011 due to an elbow injury, the two might have added many more chapters to their rivalry. Finally, we have Serena Williams versus Justine Henin's rivalry from 2001 to 2010. At the 2001 US Open, Williams and Henin first came into contact in the round of 16. Little did Williams realize at the time that the small player across the net would go on to become one of her strongest competitors in the years to come. Williams triumphed in straight sets that day, dropping just 1 game in the second. Williams prevails in their head-to-head matchup, although Henin has a 4-3 advantage in Grand Slam matches. The difference in their playing styles made their matchup intriguing. Williams always had the physical strength, but when it was offset by Henin's exquisite one-handed backhand, it made for riveting theater viewing. Henin is the only player to have won 3 straight Grand Slam tournaments over the American. Williams was defeated by the Belgian in the quarterfinals of the 2007 US Open, Wimbledon, and French Open. Surprisingly, their most recent confrontation was their first ever Grand Slam final meeting. Williams won the match after dropping the second set at the 2010 Australian Open. Has the competition in tennis decreased in recent years? Not really, but for a while now there's been a lack of rivalries among the athletes. Women's tennis has been seeking a strong rivalry for some time now, the kind that elevates the sport and becomes a global spectacle. There have been 11 first-time champions in the last 18 Grand Slam tournaments, a fact that emphasizes this argument. The WTA Tour has definitely gotten much deeper thanks to players like Simona Halep, Naomi Osaka, and Ashley Barty. But a major setback for women's tennis has been the younger players' inability to perform consistently in the majors. It wasn't always like this. The women's side of the tour has created several iconic rivalries going back to even before the Open era started in 1968. Women's tennis has witnessed a lot of intriguing confrontations that have fascinated fans for years on end. From the Battle of the Helens in the 1930s to the Williams sisters taking center stage in the 2000s. And that's all for today's video. Tell us us in the comments section below which among these rivalries stood out to you the most. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on for more videos like these. Thanks for watching and see you next time.